The chill of late autumn, thick and unyielding, seemed to seep not merely into the stone walls of Castle Eldoria, but into the very marrow of Queen Isolda's bones. It clung to the heavy tapestries depicting forgotten hunts, frosted the intricate lattice of the leaded windows, and hung like a shroud in the cavernous great hall, where the last embers of the day's fire struggled against the encroaching gloom. The year was 1487, and the kingdom of Viridian, nestled precariously between warring duchies and the shadow of the sprawling empire, felt every tremor of the queen's restless heart. Queen Isolde, a woman whose beauty, once a subject of bardic songs, was now etched with the sharp lines of a will forged in iron, sat upon a throne too vast for her slender frame. Yet she filled it with an aura of command that belied her physical stature. Her crimson gown, heavy with embroidered gold thread, seemed to absorb the meager light, making her appear less a sovereign and more a silhouette against the encroaching darkness. Outside, a persistent, mournful wind whispered secrets through the ancient oaks of the royal forest, a sound often mistaken for the cries of lost souls. Tonight it felt particularly fitting. For a decade, Isolde had ruled as regent for her young son, Prince Alaric, since the sudden and untimely death of King Theron. The official pronouncement had been a fever, swift and merciless. But whispers, like the wind outside, carried darker suggestions through the castle's hidden passages. A shadowed rival, a jealous mistress, or, most chillingly, the quiet, ambitious hand of his queen. Isolde had dismissed them with a chilling calm, her grief a perfectly tailored garment she wore for court and council, only shedding it in the silent, candle-lit hours of her private chambers. Now Alaric was nearly of age, his 18th year approaching with the relentless march of winter. The regency was nearing its end, and with it Isolde's absolute grip on power. Alaric was a delicate boy, more suited to the quiet contemplation of illuminated manuscripts than the clang of sword on shield. His health, always precarious, seemed to worsen with each passing year, a constant source of concern for the court and a quiet, unvoiced frustration for his mother. He possessed his father's gentle eyes and his mother's sharp intellect, but none of Theron's robust constitution or Isolde's unwavering ruthlessness. He coughed frequently, a dry, hacking sound that echoed too loudly in the otherwise silent halls. He preferred solitude, sketching intricate designs of forgotten beasts and mythical heroes in his personal library, rather than attending the boisterous training grounds or the drab council meetings. Isolde observed him now from across the vast hall, her gaze, sharp as a winter's night, piercing through the flickering torchlight. He sat hunched over a heavy tome, his thin fingers tracing the ancient script, oblivious to the political currents swirling around him. Beside him, in stark contrast, sat Princess Lyra, her 12-year-old daughter. Lyra was a vibrant splash of color in the muted palette of the castle, her laugh light and musical, a rare sound of joy within its walls. She possessed her mother's striking features, but softened by an inherent kindness, a warmth that Isolde had long since shed. Lyra, with her quick wit and engaging charm, was popular amongst the castle staff and the younger nobles. She was, in Isolde's detached estimation, a potential asset or a dangerous distraction. Further down the polished oak table, attempting to dismantle a wooden toy soldier with his teeth, was young Prince Gareth. At 7 years old, Gareth was a whirlwind of untamed energy, robust and boisterous, a stark physical opposite to his elder brother. He inherited his father's hardy build and a mischievous glint in his eyes. He was the picture of youthful health, a constant, irritating reminder of the vitality Isolde felt slipping away from her, and a future claim to the throne that felt increasingly distant from her control. The thought of relinquishing the reins of power was a poison festering in Isolde's mind, far more insidious than any concoction brewed in an alchemist's lab. She had built this kingdom, or rather, rebuilt it. When Theron died, Viridian had been a fractured land, its coffers depleted by her husband's lavish spending and his predecessor's foolish wars. Through shrewd alliances, ruthless taxation, and an almost unnatural foresight, Isolde had replenished the treasury, quelled minor rebellions, and forged a delicate peace with their volatile neighbors. The kingdom, once tottering on the brink of collapse, now stood on firmer ground, largely due to her iron will and strategic brilliance. To cede it all to a sickly, bookish boy seemed not merely a political folly, but a personal betrayal of her own monumental efforts. Her ambition was not a sudden, feverish urge, but a cold, calculated conviction that had grown with each success. She truly believed that she, and she alone, possessed the necessary fortitude and intellect to steer Viridian through the treacherous waters of European politics. Alaric, Lyra, even Gareth were children, naive and unprepared for the burdens of true kingship. Their very existence as heirs, however, presented a formidable, unyielding barrier to her continuing reign. The crown was not a symbol to be passed down. It was a tool, and she was the only one capable of wielding it effectively. The grand doors of the hall creaked open, admitting a gust of frigid air and the stoic figure of Master Ilara, the royal physician. Ilara was a man whose face, usually composed, now carried a faint tremor of worry. His eyes, keen and discerning, held a depth that suggested a mind accustomed to observing the subtle shifts of life and death. He carried a small leather satchel, its contents known only to him and his most trusted apprentices. Isolde noted his arrival, her gaze lingering for a moment on the dark, almost bruised circles beneath his eyes. He approached Alaric, his brow furrowed, and quietly began to examine the prince. Alaric, accustomed to the frequent inspections, merely offered a weak smile. Ilara's questions were hushed, his touch gentle as he felt the prince's pulse and pressed a cool hand to his forehead. Lyra, sensing the shift in mood, abandoned her silent observation of her brother and moved closer, her bright eyes filled with concern. Even Gareth paused his assault on the wooden soldier, his attention momentarily captured by the unusual solemnity of the physician. Isolde watched the scene with a practiced neutrality, a flicker of something, impatience, calculation, crossed her features, then vanished. She had learned long ago to mask her true emotions, a necessary skill in a court rife with informers and rivals. Her face, in the flickering light, remained a perfect mask of regal concern. "My queen." Ilara's voice, though low, carried through the stillness of the hall, cutting through the distant moaning of the wind. The prince's cough. It has worsened considerably in the past days, and his fatigue, it is profound. I confess, I am troubled. Isolde inclined her head, her expression a careful blend of sorrow and unwavering resolve. "What say you, Master Ilara? Is it the winter ague or something more grave?" Ilara hesitated, his gaze briefly meeting hers. A flicker of something, unreadable, passed between them. A silent acknowledgment of the unspoken. He had been the king's physician, then hers, and he knew the hidden currents of Eldoria better than most. He had seen the swiftness of King Theron's demise, the suddenness of his decline. Ilara's silence was more eloquent than any words. "I cannot say with certainty, Your Majesty," he finally replied, his voice carefully neutral. "The prince's constitution is delicate. I have prepared a new draft, a tonic of various herbs and roots to ease his breathing and encourage strength. I pray it offers some relief." He produced a small, stoppered vial from his satchel, its contents a murky, dark green liquid. The scent of bitter herbs, almost medicinal, wafted faintly across the hall. Alaric coughed again, a raw, rasping sound that seemed to tear at his frail chest. Isolde rose, her movements fluid and deliberate, the heavy fabric of her gown rustling softly. She approached Alaric, her face softening into an expression of maternal care, a sight rarely seen by the court. She reached for the vial, her fingers brushing Alara's. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met again. Alara's held a trace of apprehension, perhaps even suspicion. Isolde's were unreadable, like polished obsidian. She took the vial, her fingers closing around its cold glass. "You have done all you can, Master Alara. May God grant our son strength." Her voice was low, imbued with a deep, almost chilling sincerity that fooled all who heard it. She lifted the vial to Alaric's lips, her touch unexpectedly gentle. Alaric, too weak to protest, swallowed the bitter liquid obediently. He shivered, then lay back against the cushions, his eyes fluttering closed almost immediately. Lyra, seeing her brother's sudden fatigue, worriedly asked, "Will he be well, mother?" Isolde stroked Lyra's hair, her gaze still fixed on Alaric. "He will rest now, my dear. Rest is what he needs most." But her eyes, though seemingly focused on her son, were already looking past him, seeing only the vacant throne he occupied and the path that lay open before her. Later that night, long after the castle had fallen into a deep, uneasy silence, and only the guards' measured footsteps echoed in the distant corridors, Queen Isolde sat alone in her private chamber. A single flickering candle cast dancing shadows on the rich tapestries. The vial, now empty, sat on a polished oak table beside her. Its bitter aroma still clung to the air, a faint, lingering promise. She did not touch it again. She had no need. Days bled into weeks, each one dragging Prince Alaric further into the shadowed embrace of his mysterious illness. The castle, once merely cold, now felt like a tomb where life itself was slowly being extinguished. The grand hall, where the court, once gathered for feasts and revelry, became a place of hushed whispers and solemn faces. The scent of winter, already keen, mingled with the cloying sweetness of incense burned to ward off sickness and death, a futile battle against an unseen enemy. Queen Isolde maintained her facade with chilling perfection. Her eyes, though often red-rimmed, never welled with true tears. Her voice, though soft with concern, never wavered with genuine anguish. She moved through the castle like a wraith, a figure draped in mourning black, her hands clasped in prayer, her face a canvas of regal despair. The court observed her, awed by her strength, pitying her profound sorrow. None dared to voice the suspicion that simmered beneath the surface of their respect. The chilling whisper that had once followed King Theron's demise, now circling back to his fading son. Master Alara, the royal physician, became a fixture by Alaric's bedside. His face grew gaunt, his movements weary, as if the very act of fighting the prince's sickness was draining the life from him too. He administered his tonics, his poultices, his herbal infusions, each failing to stem the tide of Alaric's decline. The cough grew harsher, more frequent, racking Alaric's thin frame until he gasped for breath. His skin became translucent, his lips perpetually blue, and his once luminous eyes now held the dull, unfocused gaze of one lost in a fevered dream. Isolde would visit Alaric's chambers daily, sometimes twice a day. She would sit beside his bed, holding his clammy hand, speaking soft words of comfort that felt hollow even to her own ears. She would watch as Alara fretted, his brow perpetually furrowed, his hands shaking slightly as he checked the prince's pulse. She noted the increasing darkness beneath Alara's eyes, the subtle tremor in his voice when he addressed her. He was troubled, deeply so, and she knew why. One afternoon, as the slanting rays of a weak winter sun pierced the stained glass windows of Alaric's chamber, painting colorful fractured patterns on the stone floor, Alara approached Isolde, his face pale and etched with an unspoken urgency. Lyra sat quietly in a corner, sketching a forlorn figure on a parchment, her usual vivacity dimmed by her brother's suffering. Young Gareth, thankfully, had been spirited away to the stables, his boisterous energy ill-suited to the somber atmosphere. "Your Majesty," Alara began, his voice barely a whisper, yet it held a terrible weight. I have observed a pattern, a regularity in the prince's decline that defies natural illness." Isolde's gaze, cool and unwavering, met his. Her heart, a cold, unyielding stone, beat a steady rhythm. "Speak plainly, Master Alara. What are you suggesting?" He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "His symptoms, the precise ebb and flow of his strength and weakness. They are too consistent, too deliberate, and the remedies I administer, designed to alleviate such ailments, seem to have no lasting effect, save for a fleeting moment of relief before the decline recommences." His voice dropped further, almost to an inaudible murmur. "It is as if a hand guides this sickness, Your Majesty, a hand that works with a chilling precision." The air in the room grew thick, heavy with the unspoken. Lyra, engrossed in her drawing, remained oblivious. Isolde leaned forward, her eyes narrowing, her voice a silken thread of menace. "Are you implying sorcery, Master Alara? Or perhaps an accusation against those who minister to the prince?" Alara flinched, his gaze darting to the closed chamber door as if fearing unseen ears. "No, Your Majesty, not sorcery, but I have seen such symptoms once before. Long ago, a rare poison, one known to induce a wasting sickness, mimicking consumption, allowing the victim to fade slowly without suspicion." Isolde's face remained impassive, betraying nothing. "A poison? Are you quite mad, Master Alara? Who would dare? And why?" "My son is the heir, beloved by all." Her words were a chilling mockery of true emotion, each one a calculated thrust. "The symptoms, they match, Your Majesty. The gradual weakening, the cough, the fever that comes and goes, the blue lips, the extreme fatigue, the insatiable thirst. I have checked every other possibility, every known disease. Nothing else fits. And the strange refusal of the body to heal, despite all my efforts." He wrung his hands, his desperation evident. "I do not know who or why, but I know what I see. Someone is, administering something to the prince, slowly, deliberately." A beat of silence stretched between them, taut as a bowstring. Isolde allowed the weight of his words to hang in the air, testing their resonance, gauging their potential impact. This was the moment she had anticipated, the crucial pivot. Alara was not merely a physician, he was a man of integrity, and his suspicions, once aroused, would not be easily quieted. He was a danger. "Master Alara," Isolde said, her voice dropping to a tone of profound, almost conspiratorial intimacy. "You are a man of rare intellect and even rarer loyalty. I value your counsel above all others in this castle." She paused, allowing the implied flattery to settle. This poison you speak of, how certain are you?" "With every fiber of my being, Your Majesty," he replied, his voice firm despite his fear. "I cannot be mistaken." Isolde rose, moving closer to him, her hand gently resting on his arm. Her touch, though light, felt like a binding constraint. "Then we must proceed with the utmost caution. A revelation of this magnitude, it would tear the kingdom apart. Accusations would fly, loyalties would be questioned. The very stability of Viridian would be jeopardized, especially with the prince's health already so fragile." She lowered, her voice further, her eyes fixed on his, piercing his soul. "Imagine the panic, Master Alara, the unrest, The whispers would turn to shouts, and then to outright rebellion. The empire would seize upon our weakness. Our enemies would circle like vultures. Ilara's eyes widened, a dawning comprehension of the political abyss opening before them. But we cannot let this continue, Your Majesty. The prince, he is fading, and he must not, Isolde stated, her voice hardening with an almost imperceptible edge. Not yet. Not like this. We must find the culprit, but we must do so in secret. We must catch them in the act, or obtain irrefutable proof. To announce this prematurely would be to invite chaos. And chaos, Master Ilara, is the death knell of kingdoms. She leaned in, her voice now barely a breath, but each word resonated with chilling authority. You are the only one, Master Ilara, who possesses the knowledge and the discretion to aid me in this. We must continue to minister to the prince as if nothing is amiss. You must continue with your drafts and tonics, but you must also observe, watch. Look for the hand that guides this sickness. Identify the method, the precise timing. Who enters and leaves his chamber? Who prepares his food, his drink? Leave no stone unturned, and speak of this to no one. Not a soul, do you understand? Ilara, caught between his oath to his patient and the terrifying weight of Isolde's words, nodded slowly, his face a mask of profound apprehension. I understand, Your Majesty. But what if I fail? What if the prince— Isolde's hand tightened on his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You will not fail, Master Ilara. For the sake of the prince, for the sake of Viridian, you cannot. Your loyalty to the crown, your oath to protect the royal family, it demands this secrecy, this vigilance. And should you uncover the culprit, you will come to me, and me alone. We will handle this with the utmost discretion and severity. Her eyes, though still unreadable, conveyed a chilling promise of retribution. Ilara bowed, his shoulders slumped, the terrible burden of his discovery now compounded by the Queen's terrifying mandate of silence. He was a physician, a healer, thrust into a world of court intrigue and deadly secrets. He felt a profound sense of isolation, burdened by knowledge that could shatter his world, and trapped by a queen whose will was absolute. As he turned to leave, Isolde's voice stopped him. One more thing, Master Ilara. The prince's nightly drafts. I will oversee their preparation myself. I will bring them to him to ensure no one else can tamper with them. She offered him a faint, reassuring smile that did not reach her eyes. It is a mother's duty, is it not, to ensure her son's well-being? Ilara's gaze flickered to the empty vial on the bedside table, the same murky green tonic he had given her. A tremor, colder than the winter air, ran through him. He recalled the previous night, the Queen's hand on the vial, the faint, bitter scent of the herbs. And something else. Something he couldn't quite place, a faint, almost metallic tang beneath the familiar aroma. He had dismissed it then as a trick of his weary senses. Now, a cold dread began to coil in his gut. He bowed again, a deeper, more desperate bow this time, and quickly exited the chamber, leaving Isolde alone with her ailing son and her unsuspecting daughter. Isolde watched him go, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her lips. Ilara was a skilled physician, too skilled for her purposes. His suspicions, while dangerous, could also be turned to her advantage. By burdening him with this false mission of secret investigation, she had bound him to her. His fear of chaos, of instability, his loyalty to the crown, would keep him silent, paralyzed by the weight of his knowledge and the terrible choice she had forced upon him.